The notification chimed at 8:47 p.m. while I was elbow deep in the engine of my '98 Ford pickup, grease coating my knuckles like war paint. 23 years of marriage, and I could predict Danielle's texts with the accuracy of a Swiss watch. Don't wait up. The CEO invited me to discuss my promotion. I wiped my hands on an old rag, staring at the screen. The fluorescent garage light buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the concrete floor. My reflection in the truck's side mirror showed a man who'd seen better days, Owen Mercer, 45, graying at the temples, wearing a Carhartt jacket that had survived 3 job changes and 1 midlife crisis. I typed back, "Good luck." 2 words. Clean, simple, supportive. The kind of response a loving husband should send. The kind that wouldn't raise suspicions or start arguments. The kind that bought me time to retrieve the manila envelope I'd been saving for exactly this moment. Last month's photographs were organized chronologically, each one time-stamped and dated. Philip Thornton, CEO of Meridian Industries, had expensive taste in restaurants and cheap taste in married employees. The camera never lies, especially when it captures a man's hand sliding up a woman's thigh in the back booth of Romano's steakhouse. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Eddie from the boxing gym. "You coming in tonight? Heavy bags calling your name." "Rain check," I replied. "Got some business to handle." The business involved finding Abigail Thornton's contact information. LinkedIn made it embarrassingly easy. Professional headshot, perfectly styled blonde hair, the kind of smile that cost 5 figures in dental work. Her profile listed her as a board member for 3 charities and president of the Riverside Country Club Women's Auxiliary. I composed the message carefully. No accusations, no editorial comments. Just facts with photographic evidence attached. "Mrs. Thornton, I believe these images may be of interest to you. They were taken at Romano's Steakhouse on March 15th at approximately 9:30 p.m. My finger hovered over the send button for exactly 3 seconds. Then I pressed it. The photographs transmitted into cyberspace while my wife was probably ordering her second glass of wine, batting her eyelashes at a man who'd promised her the world in exchange for her integrity. Danielle had always been ambitious, but somewhere along the way, ambition had curdled into something uglier. I walked back to the truck, popped the hood, and resumed work on the carburetor. The engine problems were fixable. My marriage, apparently, was not. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Danielle's name appeared on the screen, but the voice that answered was barely recognizable. Tears had transformed my wife's usual confident tone into something broken and desperate. "Owen, something terrible happened. The meeting, it got canceled. Philip said there was a family emergency. I don't understand what went wrong." I let the silence stretch between us like a taut wire. In the background, I could hear restaurant noise, clinking glasses, muted conversations, the sound of dreams crashing into reality. "Owen, are you there?" "I'm here," I said finally. "Can you come pick me up?" "I don't think I should drive." "Call a cab." "Please, Owen, I need—" I hung up. The garage felt different now, charged with the electricity of consequences finally arriving at their destination. For months, I'd watched my wife transform from the woman I'd married into someone I barely recognized. Late nights at the office became later. Business trips multiplied. Her phone developed a password I wasn't allowed to know. But I'd been watching, learning, preparing. The manila envelope contained more than just photographs. Bank statements showed expensive dinners charged to company accounts. Hotel receipts from business trips that coincidentally aligned with Philip's travel schedule. Text message screenshots I'd captured when she'd left her phone unattended. I'd built my case like a prosecutor preparing for trial, because I'd learned something important during my 23-year marriage. The truth doesn't set you free. Evidence does. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Abigail Thornton. We need to talk." I smiled for the first time in months. The coffee shop Abigail chose was neutral territory. a Starbucks in the strip mall between her world and mine. She arrived precisely on time, wearing a cream-colored cashmere coat that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Up close, the professional headshot hadn't done her justice. Abigail Thornton was beautiful in the way that money makes possible: flawless skin, perfect posture, eyes that missed nothing. She slid into the booth across from me, placing her phone face down on the table between us. "Mr. Mercer." "Mrs. Thornton. Those photographs you sent. How long has this been going on?" I sipped my black coffee, studying her face for cracks in the composure. "Based on what I've documented, 3 months. But I suspect longer." She nodded, as if confirming something she'd already suspected. "Philip's been working late frequently. Board meetings that don't appear on his calendar. Business dinners with clients I've never heard him mention." "Your husband has a type," I said. "Married women with career ambitions. Makes them easier to control." Abigail's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "You think Danielle is his first?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd been so focused on my own betrayal that I hadn't considered the bigger picture. "How many others?" "3 that I know of, all employees, all married, all promoted shortly before the affairs began." She opened her purse and withdrew a leather portfolio. "I've been collecting evidence for 2 years, waiting for the right moment." The portfolio contained photographs, financial records, and what appeared to be private investigator reports. Philip Thornton wasn't just betraying his wife. He was running a systematic operation, trading promotions for intimate favors. "Why haven't you used this?" I asked. "Divorce would be expensive and messy. Philip's lawyers are better than mine, and half the judges in this county play golf at his club." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But public humiliation? That's free." I was beginning to understand why Philip had married this woman. Behind the charity luncheons and country club facade, Abigail Thornton had the instincts of a predator. "What do you have in mind?" "The company's annual gala is next Friday. 500 guests, including every major business leader in the city. The local newspaper always covers it. Channel 7 sends a camera crew." "You want to expose him publicly?" "I want to destroy him publicly. There's a difference." She slid a business card across the table. "My cousin owns a digital marketing firm. He specializes in social media campaigns that go viral." I picked up the card. "What's in this for me?" "Revenge is a dish best served cold, Mr. Mercer. But it tastes even better when it's shared." We spent the next hour planning. Abigail had access to Philip's calendar, his email passwords, and his social media accounts. I had documentation of his affair with Danielle and connections to several disgruntled employees who'd suspected what was happening but couldn't prove it. By the time we parted ways, we'd outlined a strategy that would systematically dismantle both Philip's career and my wife's reputation. It felt like Christmas morning and a funeral combined into one perfectly orchestrated moment. That evening, Danielle came home looking like she'd been crying for hours. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, her usual confidence replaced by something fragile and desperate. "We need to talk," she said, dropping her purse on the kitchen counter. I was sitting at the dining room table, reading the newspaper like nothing had changed. "About what?" "About us. About our marriage. About why you hung up on me tonight." I folded the paper carefully, meeting her eyes for the first time in weeks. "You want to talk about our marriage? Let's talk about your promotion." The color drained from her face. "Owen, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How sleeping with your boss was going to benefit our family. How lying to my face every morning was part of your career development plan." She sank into the chair across from me, her hands trembling. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Danielle stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. The man she'd married 23 years ago wouldn't have hung up on his crying wife. He wouldn't have sent compromising photographs to another man's spouse. He wouldn't have spent his evening planning elaborate revenge schemes with a woman he'd met 6 hours ago. But that man was gone, replaced by someone harder and infinitely more dangerous. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "You made a choice, multiple choices, over multiple months." I stood up, folding the newspaper under my arm. The only mistake was thinking I wouldn't find out. I walked toward the stairs, leaving her sitting alone at the table where we'd shared thousands of meals and made countless plans for a future that no longer existed. "Owen, wait." I paused at the bottom of the staircase. "Your boyfriend's wife says hello, by the way." The sound that escaped Danielle's throat wasn't quite a gasp and wasn't quite a sob. It was the sound of a woman realizing that her carefully constructed world was about to collapse. I climbed the stairs without looking back. The next morning brought rain and revelations. I'd spent the night in the guest bedroom, listening to Danielle pace the hallway like a caged animal. By dawn, she was gone. Probably to the office for damage control, or maybe to Philip's arms for comfort. Either way, her absence gave me the freedom to conduct a more thorough investigation. Danielle's home office was a shrine to her ambition. Diplomas on the walls, awards on the shelves, photographs of her shaking hands with minor celebrities at corporate events. Her desk was organized with military precision, every pen in its place, every document filed according to some system that made sense only to her. But people make mistakes when they're living double lives. They get careless. The bottom drawer of her filing cabinet was locked, which was interesting since none of the others were. The key was hidden in a place she thought was clever, taped to the underside of her desk lamp. 23 years of marriage had taught me all her hiding spots. Inside the drawer, I found a different version of my wife. Hotel receipts from weekends when she'd claimed to be at conferences. Credit card statements showing purchases at lingerie stores I'd never heard of. A handwritten note from Philip that made my stomach turn. "Last night was incredible. I can't wait to make your promotion official. You've earned it in every possible way." But the real treasure was her personal journal. Danielle had always been a writer, filling notebook after notebook with her thoughts and observations. I'd respected her privacy, never reading a single entry in all our years together. That respect died the moment I opened the leather-bound book and saw Philip's name scattered across the pages like a virus. March 3rd. Philip called me into his office today. He said my quarterly numbers were impressive, that I had real leadership potential. When he put his hand on my shoulder, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Owen has been so distant lately, so focused on his truck and his boxing gym. Sometimes I wonder if he even sees me anymore. March 10th. Had dinner with Philip to discuss the regional manager position. He chose Romano's because it's discreet. We talked about business for an hour, then the conversation shifted. He told me I was beautiful, that I deserved better than my current situation. I should have left, but I didn't want to. For the first time in months, I felt desired. March 15th. I crossed a line tonight. We went back to his hotel after dinner. I kept telling myself it was just business, just networking, just one night. But I knew it wasn't true. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I did it anyway. Owen suspects something. He's been asking questions about my schedule, watching me when he thinks I'm not looking. But he's too passive to confront me directly. He'll just suffer in silence like he always does. The entries continued for weeks, each one a dagger twisted deeper into whatever remained of our marriage. But it was the most recent entry that made my hands shake with rage. April 2nd. Philip promised me the promotion is mine, but he wants to make our arrangement more official. He suggested I file for divorce, that we could be together openly once the paperwork is finalized. I told him I needed time to think, but honestly, what is there to think about? Owen is a good man, but he's small. His dreams are small, his ambitions are small, his entire world fits inside this cramped house and that dingy gym. I want more. I deserve more. Philip can give me more. I closed the journal and sat in her chair, staring at the rain streaking down the window. 23 years of marriage, reduced to a series of journal entries that painted me as an obstacle to be discarded. My phone buzzed with a text from Abigail. "Coffee in an hour? I have updates." I photographed every page of the journal with my phone, then returned everything to exactly how I'd found it. Danielle would never know I'd been there, which was important. The element of surprise was my greatest weapon. An hour later, I was back at Starbucks, watching Abigail scroll through the photographs on my phone. Her expression grew darker with each image. "This is perfect," she said finally. "Better than I hoped." "Perfect how?" "She's planning to divorce you. That means she's confident about her future with Philip. Confident people make mistakes." Abigail pulled out her own phone and showed me a series of screenshots. "Philip's been busy too. He's already started the paperwork to create a new regional manager position. The job description is tailored specifically to Danielle's qualifications. He's also been researching divorce lawyers." The systematic nature of their betrayal was breathtaking. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a temporary lapse in judgment. It was a calculated campaign to restructure both their lives around their affair. "There's more," Abigail continued. "I accessed his email last night. He's been corresponding with 2 other employees, both married women, both interested in advancement opportunities. Your wife isn't special, Owen. She's just next in line." The coffee in my mouth tasted like ash. "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing yet. Let them think they're winning. Let them get comfortable. The gala is in 4 days. That's when we make our move." She slid a manila envelope across the table. "Everything you need is in there. Invitations, floor plans, contact information for the photographer and videographer. My cousin's marketing firm has already created the social media accounts we'll need." I opened the envelope and found a level of preparation that impressed even me. Abigail had thought of everything: backup plans for the backup plans, contingencies for scenarios I hadn't even considered. "You've done this before," I said. "Not exactly, but I've been planning it for 2 years. Philip thinks he's untouchable because he's careful, because he chooses his targets strategically, because he covers his tracks. But he made one crucial mistake." "Which was?" "He married me." The smile that spread across Abigail's face was beautiful and terrifying. I was beginning to understand that I wasn't the architect of this revenge plot. I was just a weapon she'd been waiting to use. But I didn't care. As long as Philip and Danielle paid for what they'd done, Abigail could use me however she wanted. 4 days, I said. 4 days, she agreed. We shook hands like business partners closing a deal. In a way, that's exactly what we were. The Meridian Industries annual gala was held at the Riverside Convention Center, a gleaming monument to corporate excess overlooking the river. I'd attended twice before as Danielle's +1, standing awkwardly in rented tuxedos while she networked with people whose names I immediately forgot. This year would be different. I spent Thursday afternoon at Eddie's gym, working the heavy bag until my knuckles were raw and my shirt was soaked with sweat. Eddie watched from behind the counter, occasionally offering advice about my footwork or breathing technique. "You're hitting harder than usual," he observed during a water break. "Got some aggression to work out." "This about Danielle?" Eddie had known me for 15 years. He'd seen me through job changes, family problems, and my father's funeral. He was also one of the few people who'd noticed the changes in my marriage before I'd been ready to admit them. "She's been cheating," I said, unwrapping my hands. "I figured. She stopped coming to your fights 6 months ago. Before that, she never missed one." The amateur boxing circuit wasn't glamorous. Fights held in high school gymnasiums and community centers, crowds of maybe 50 people on a good night. But Danielle had always been there, cheering from the front row, taking pictures for her social media accounts. Her absence had been one of the first signs that something was wrong. "What are you going to do about it?" Eddie asked. "Something she'll never forget." Eddie nodded, like that was the most natural response in the world. "Need any help?" "Maybe. I'll let you know." That evening, I tried on the tuxedo I'd rented for the gala. It fit better than the ones I'd worn before. I'd lost weight over the past few months, stress and boxing combining to strip away the softness that had accumulated during my 40s. The man in the mirror looked harder, more dangerous, the kind of man who might actually be capable of the things I was planning. Danielle came home at 11, looking exhausted and defeated. She'd been working late every night since the promotion meeting had been canceled, probably trying to salvage her career and her relationship with Philip. The strain was showing, dark circles under her eyes, tension lines around her mouth, the kind of weariness that comes from fighting a losing battle. "We need to talk about tomorrow night," she said, finding me in the kitchen. "What about it?" "The gala. I know things have been difficult between us lately, but this is important for my career. I need you there, supporting me. Can you do that?" The audacity was breathtaking. She wanted me to play the role of the supportive husband while she paraded around with her lover in front of 500 people. She wanted me to smile and shake hands and make small talk while she positioned herself for a promotion she'd earned on her back. "Of course," I said. "I wouldn't miss it." Relief flooded her face. "Thank you. I know I haven't been the best wife lately, but after tomorrow night, things will be different. Better. I'm sure they will." She kissed my cheek, a gesture that felt like a betrayal in itself, and headed upstairs to bed. I stayed in the kitchen, reviewing the plans Abigail and I had finalized that afternoon. The gala would begin at 7 with cocktails and networking. Dinner would be served at 8, followed by speeches and awards presentations. The climax would come at 9:30, when Philip took the stage to deliver his annual address about company values and future growth. That's when we'd strike. Abigail's cousin had created a series of social media accounts designed to look like legitimate news sources. The posts were already written, the images prepared, the hashtags selected for maximum viral potential. All we needed was the right moment to push the button. My phone buzzed with a text from Abigail. "Everything ready on my end? Sleep well. Tomorrow we make history." I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the photographs of Danielle and Philip that had started this whole chain of events. In 12 hours, those images would be seen by hundreds of people. By tomorrow morning, they'd be seen by thousands. The thought should have made me feel guilty. Instead, it made me feel alive for the first time in months. I raised my glass in a toast to the empty kitchen. "To promotion," I said, and drained the whiskey in one burning gulp. The Riverside Convention Center buzzed with the energy of 500 people pretending to enjoy themselves. I stood near the bar, nursing a scotch and watching the elaborate social theater unfold around me. CEOs glad-handed politicians, lawyers networked with developers, and everyone pretended that business and friendship were the same thing. Danielle worked the room like a professional, her smile bright and confident as she moved from group to group. She'd chosen a black cocktail dress that hugged her curves and drew appreciative glances from men who didn't know she was married. Or maybe they did know, and simply didn't care. Philip held court near the stage, surrounded by admirers and sycophants. He looked every inch the successful executive. Silver hair perfectly styled, expensive suit tailored to hide the softness around his middle, confident smile that suggested he owned everything and everyone in the room. He had no idea that his world was about to end. "You clean up nice." I turned to find Abigail approaching with 2 glasses of champagne. She looked stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than my car, her hair swept up to reveal diamond earrings that caught the light with every movement. "You ready for this?" I asked. "I've been ready for 2 years." She handed me one of the champagne glasses. "To justice. To revenge." We clinked glasses and drank. Around us, the party continued its elaborate dance of pretense and ambition. None of them knew they were about to witness the social execution of one of their own. At 8:15, dinner was served. I sat at table 12 with other middle management types and their spouses, making small talk about sports and weather While my wife sat at the head table with Philip and the other company executives, she looked radiant in the spotlight, basking in the attention and approval of people who mattered. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was probably the last night she'd ever feel this confident, this secure in her position and her future. Tomorrow, she'd be a cautionary tale whispered about in break rooms and boardrooms across the city. At 9:20, Philip took the stage for his annual address. The room fell silent as he adjusted the microphone and smiled out at the crowd with the easy confidence of a man who'd never faced real consequences for his actions. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate another successful year at Meridian Industries. As I look out at this room, I see the faces of people who share our commitment to excellence, integrity, and innovation. The word integrity hung in the air like a challenge. I caught Abigail's eye across the room and nodded. She smiled and pulled out her phone. Our success this year has been built on the foundation of strong leadership and dedicated employees who go above and beyond the call of duty. People who understand that advancement in this company requires commitment, sacrifice, and a willingness to do whatever it takes to achieve excellence. Abigail's fingers moved across her phone screen. Somewhere in cyberspace, the first post went live. I'm particularly proud of our management development program, which has identified and nurtured some of our most promising talent. These individuals have demonstrated not just professional competence, but personal dedication that extends far beyond normal business hours. The second post went live, then the third. Social media algorithms began their work, spreading our carefully crafted content across networks and platforms with viral efficiency. Philip continued his speech, oblivious to the digital wildfire spreading through the room. Phones began buzzing. People started checking their messages, their expressions shifting from polite attention to shocked fascination. Excellence requires sacrifice from all of us. It demands that we put the company's interests ahead of our personal comfort, that we build relationships based on trust and mutual benefit, and that we reward those who demonstrate their commitment through actions, not just words. A woman at table 3 gasped audibly. Her husband leaned over to look at her phone, his face darkening as he processed what he was seeing. The whispers started then, a low murmur that spread through the room like ripples on a pond. Philip noticed the disturbance but pressed on, his voice rising slightly to regain attention. The relationships we build here extend beyond the workplace. They become partnerships that enrich our lives and strengthen our community. They represent the very best of what corporate leadership can achieve. More phones buzzed. More people gasped. The whispers grew louder, harder to ignore. Danielle looked around nervously, sensing that something was wrong but not understanding what. That's when the first photograph appeared on the main display screen. It was a candid shot of Philip and Danielle at Romano's steakhouse, his hand resting possessively on her thigh, while she leaned into him with obvious intimacy. The timestamp in the corner showed it was taken 3 weeks ago, during one of their business dinners. The room erupted. Philip spun around to stare at the screen, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and horror in the space of 3 seconds. The microphone picked up his sharp intake of breath and broadcast it to 500 people who were now staring at undeniable evidence of his hypocrisy. The second photograph replaced the first. This one showed them entering a hotel together, Philip's arm around Danielle's waist, both of them laughing at some private joke. The third showed them kissing in the hotel parking lot, their bodies pressed together with unmistakable passion. Danielle stood frozen at the head table, her face white as paper, her mouth open in shock. Around her, the other executives shifted uncomfortably, distancing themselves from the scandal that was unfolding in real time. "Turn it off!" Philip shouted, but the hotel's audio-visual technician was nowhere to be found. The photographs kept cycling, each one more damaging than the last. The final image was the most devastating, a screenshot of Danielle's journal entry about deserving better than her small husband and her cramped house. The words glowed on the screen like accusations, stripping away any pretense that this was just a professional relationship gone wrong. The room fell silent, except for the sound of phones buzzing and cameras clicking. Every person in attendance was documenting the moment, creating a permanent record of Philip and Danielle's public humiliation. I stood up slowly, straightening my tie, and began walking toward the stage. People moved aside to let me pass, their faces a mixture of sympathy and morbid curiosity. I was the wronged husband, the victim, the man everyone would remember as either tragically naive or brilliantly vindictive. When I reached the microphone, Philip was still standing there, paralyzed by shock and the magnitude of his exposure. I gently moved him aside and adjusted the microphone to my height. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the silent room, "I'd like to thank you all for attending tonight's presentation. As you can see, Meridian Industries takes professional development very seriously. Some employees are willing to go to extraordinary lengths to earn their promotions." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. At the head table, Danielle had sunk into her chair, her hands covering her face. "I especially want to thank my wife, Danielle, for demonstrating such dedication to her career advancement. And of course, Mr. Thornton, for his hands-on approach to employee mentorship." The laughter was louder now, edged with cruelty. These people had no loyalty to Philip or Danielle. They were simply enjoying the spectacle of watching powerful people fall. I'm sure you'll all join me in congratulating them on their innovative approach to corporate networking. It's certainly given new meaning to the phrase, climbing the corporate ladder. I set the microphone back in its stand and walked off the stage, leaving Philip and Danielle to face the consequences of their choices. Behind me, the room exploded into conversation, speculation, and the kind of gossip that would fuel social media for weeks. The photographs were already spreading beyond the convention center, shared and reshared across platforms with hashtags like Meridian Scandal and Promotion Earned. By morning, they'd be seen by thousands of people. By next week, they'd be a cautionary tale told in business schools and HR seminars. I walked out into the cool night air, breathing deeply for the first time in months. My phone was already buzzing with calls and messages, but I ignored them all. There would be time for explanations and consequences later. For now, I simply stood in the parking lot, watching through the windows as my carefully orchestrated revenge played out exactly as planned. Philip and Danielle had built their relationship on lies and betrayal. Tonight, the truth had finally set me free. The next morning brought chaos wrapped in sunshine. I woke up in the guest bedroom to find 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and my name trending on 3 different social media platforms. The photographs from the gala had spread through the internet like a virus, picking up momentum with each share and comment. Danielle was gone. Her car wasn't in the driveway, her clothes were missing from the closet, and she'd left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter next to a handwritten note that said simply, "I'm sorry." 23 years of marriage reduced to 2 words on a piece of notebook paper. My phone rang. Eddie's name appeared on the screen. "You crazy son of a gun," he said without preamble. "You're all over the internet. Channel 7 wants to interview you. So does the newspaper." "I'm not talking to reporters." "Smart. Let them speculate. Makes the story bigger." Eddie paused. "How do you feel?" It was a good question. I'd expected to feel triumphant, vindicated, satisfied by the completeness of my revenge. Instead, I felt hollow, like a balloon with all the air let out. "Empty," I admitted. "That's normal. You've been running on anger for months. Now that it's over, you don't know what to feel." Eddie understood. He'd been through his own divorce 10 years earlier, though his ex-wife hadn't cheated. She'd just decided she wanted a different life with a different man. The end result was the same: a marriage destroyed, a future rewritten, a man left to figure out who he was without the woman who'd defined half his identity. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you rebuild. One day at a time, one decision at a time. You figure out what Owen Mercer wants, when he's not busy getting revenge on his cheating wife. After Eddie hung up, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through the social media posts about last night's events. The photographs had been shared thousands of times, accompanied by commentary that ranged from sympathetic to savage. Someone had created a meme using Philip's speech about integrity with his photograph superimposed over the word hypocrisy. Danielle fared worse in the court of public opinion. The comments about her were particularly brutal, focusing on everything from her appearance to her character to her fitness as a mother. The internet had no mercy for women who cheated, especially when their betrayal was documented so thoroughly. My phone buzzed with a text from Abigail. "Coffee? We need to discuss next steps." An hour later, we sat in our usual booth at Starbucks, surrounded by the normalcy of suburban life, while our revenge plot continued spreading through cyberspace. Abigail looked tired, but satisfied, like a general who'd won a decisive battle. "Philip filed for divorce this morning," she said, without preamble. "His lawyer called mine at 8 a.m. He wants to settle quickly and quietly." "What about his job?" "The board of directors is meeting this afternoon, emergency session. My sources say they're going to ask for his resignation." The speed of his collapse was breathtaking. Less than 12 hours after his public humiliation, Philip Thornton was watching his marriage, career, and reputation unravel at the same time. The photographs did more than reveal the affair. They exposed a pattern of exploitation, showing how he had systematically misused his position for personal gain. "What about the other women?" I asked. "3 of them have already contacted employment lawyers. They're alleging harassment, coercive pressure, and a hostile work environment. The company is going to be dealing with lawsuits for years." Abigail pulled out her phone and showed me the latest social media metrics. The hashtag #YourMeridian scandal had been used over 50,000 times in the past 12 hours. The story had been picked up by business news websites, gossip blogs, and local television stations. Philip and Danielle's faces were everywhere, forever linked to one of the most spectacular corporate scandals in the city's history. "We did this," Abigail said, her voice filled with quiet satisfaction. "We destroyed him completely. What about you? What happens to your marriage?" "My marriage ended 2 years ago when I found the first photographs. Everything since then has been preparation for this moment." She smiled, and for the first time since I'd met her, the expression reached her eyes. "I'm free, Owen. For the first time in 20 years, I'm completely free." I understood the feeling. Despite the hollowness, despite the uncertainty about the future, I felt liberated from the weight of pretending my marriage was salvageable. The photographs had burned away the lies and left only truth, harsh and unforgiving, but honest. "What will you do now?" I asked. "Travel. I've always wanted to see Europe, but Philip hated flying. Maybe I'll buy a house in France, learn to paint, take cooking classes. All the things I put off while I was being the perfect corporate wife." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "What about you?" "I don't know yet. File for divorce, I suppose. Figure out how to split 23 years of shared assets and memories. Try to rebuild some kind of relationship with our daughter." Our daughter. Jessica was a sophomore at State University, probably waking up to find her family's private drama splashed across the internet for her classmates to see. She'd need explanations, support, reassurance that her parents' failures didn't define her future. "She'll understand," Abigail said, reading my thoughts. "Children always know when their parents' marriage is broken, even when the parents try to hide it. You just made it official." My phone rang. Jessica's name appeared on the screen. "I have to take this," I told Abigail. "Dad?" Jessica's voice was small, confused, younger than her 19 years. "I saw the pictures. Everyone's talking about them. Is it true?" "Yes, sweetheart. It's true. Why didn't you tell me? Why did I have to find out from social media like everyone else?" The pain in her voice cut through me like a blade. In my focus on revenge, I'd forgotten that other people would be hurt by the fallout. Jessica was an innocent victim, caught in the crossfire of her parents' war. I'm sorry. I should have called you first. I should have prepared you. Are you getting divorced? Probably. Your mother made choices that I can't forgive. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was steadier, more mature. I'm sorry, Dad. I know you loved her. I know this must be horrible for you. I'll be okay. We'll both be okay. Can I come home this weekend? I don't want to be here right now with everyone staring and whispering. Of course. I'll pick you up Friday afternoon. After Jessica hung up, I sat staring at my phone, thinking about the conversation I'd just had. My daughter had shown more maturity and compassion in 5 minutes than her mother had demonstrated in months. Whatever mistakes Danielle and I had made as parents, we'd raised a good kid. Everything all right? Abigail asked. My daughter wants to come home this weekend. She's having trouble dealing with all the attention. That's natural. This will blow over eventually. Something else will capture the internet's attention, and people will move on to the next scandal. But I knew it would never completely blow over for Jessica. For the rest of her life, she'd be the daughter of the woman who cheated on her husband with her boss and got exposed at a corporate gala. It would follow her through job interviews and relationships, a piece of family history she'd have to explain or overcome. That was the one part of my revenge I regretted. Jessica didn't deserve to pay for her mother's sins. I should go, I said, standing up. I need to clean the house before Jessica gets home, and I should probably call a lawyer. Abigail nodded. Thank you, Owen, for everything. I couldn't have done this without you. Thank you for giving me the chance. We shook hands like business partners concluding a successful deal. In a way, that's exactly what we were. We'd formed a temporary alliance based on mutual benefit and shared goals. Now that those goals had been achieved, we could go our separate ways with no obligations or expectations. I drove home through streets that looked exactly the same as they had yesterday, though everything had changed. The house felt different too. Not empty exactly, but somehow lighter, as if the weight of lies and pretense had been lifted from the walls. I spent the afternoon cleaning and organizing, preparing for Jessica's visit. In the evening, I went to Eddie's gym and worked the heavy bag until my hands were numb and my shirt was soaked with sweat. The physical exertion helped clear my mind, replacing the chaos of the past 24 hours with the simple rhythm of punch, breathe, punch, breathe. Feeling better? Eddie asked as I unwrapped my hands. Getting there. Good. Tomorrow's a new day, Owen. First day of the rest of your life. He was right. The revenge was over, the marriage was finished, and the future was a blank page waiting to be written. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I drove home through the darkness, past houses where other families were living their own dramas and keeping their own secrets. Some of those secrets would eventually be exposed, just as mine had been. Others would remain buried forever. But for the first time in months, I wasn't keeping any secrets. The truth had set me free, exactly as I'd hoped it would. The only question now was what to do with that freedom.